All right, so this is something that's been talked about for a while, and I've been asked this question multiple times. My thoughts, and I usually give the same kind of answer when it comes to this, which is the question is, by the way, has esports ruined gaming? As you see right there, that's what we're gonna react to. But before I react to it, I'm gonna give my answer on this. I'm gonna stick to what I said in the comments before someone asked me. No, I don't believe it has. Um, it has made the online multiplayer scene more competitive, where people are more sweaty than before. But personally, this is my thoughts on being a sweat. Is it's not that big of a deal to me. It's not that big of a deal. There's, I always say this all the time when people are like, you sweating. I'm like, uh, the person that you're facing wants to win. If you call that being is sweating, then that's on you. But just because this person put more time in to learn the game doesn't, it's not justifiable. If that's actually a word, unjustifiable. If not, I just made that up. But yeah, I've never really thought esports, it opened more doors for gamers to find a job in this, even though it is a hit or miss if esports is, can be lucrative or not financially, but still it opened more doors to more opportunities for gamers. And I always thought it was cool, but there's a lot of them who say, well, I'm a guy who goes to work, I come home, I want to turn on the game and just have fun for an hour. And I understand that. I understand where you're coming from. There are the casual fan base and there's the competitive fan base. And it is a tough thing to handle where, with casual and competitive meeting up together, because I used to say all the time, and I'm wrong for it, but I used to say all the time, just play casual matches, whatever that game is, Call of Duty, fighting games, whatever the case may be. Just go to casual and you'll be fine. But that's not the case, and I'm saying I'm wrong on saying it because the competitors, the people who sweat, go on that mode too, and in some ways like ruin the fun, like how skill-based matchmaking has always been a problem on Call of Duty. So as much as I understand where people like that are going through, at the same time you're playing online multiplayer competitive. People on the opposite team are not trying to give you wins. That's the thing I always thought about it was, when people complain about, oh, they're trying so hard, so you want them to let you win. And I always, and help me out for those who do say that, how would you want your opponents to play? The goal is me versus you. I'm talking about competitive games. We play sports games. We play FIFA, Call of Duty, Tekken, Street Fighter, whatever the case may be. It's you versus your opponent. So they're not sweating if they let you win? I always wondered that, and I asked somebody that. I said, and I wanted to know. He never gave me an answer, and I still was waiting on that answer. I'm like, so what would this guy do for him not to be sweaty? Let you win? No reply. And, I do understand the fact of, if there's, like Call of Duty, for example, there's a lot of different guns in the game, and usually people always use the meta. I can understand how that's weird because they take it too seriously, as some people say, or there's so many other guns, why don't you explore? Or in fighting games, you see, and I will attest to this, I used to complain about it too, how you will see the same three characters in Mortal Kombat tournaments or other games, but they're trying to win, and they're doing it the best way possible. Whoever has the best, however you want to say it, artillery to win the game. They go to whatever the best is, that's what they do. They're trying to win, and at the end of the day, when you play multiplayer games, it's you versus your opponent. Regardless of how you feel, the opponent's trying to win. And it could be hard to deal with that because you're like, why don't you explore different guns on Call of Duty? Why don't you explore different characters? You paid $70 to play the way you wanted to. They could pay $70 for the game to play how they want to. Some people literally want to win by any means necessary. Is that always fun? In my opinion, no. Like I like to win when I play multiplayer games, but I like to, I ain't gonna take it too. So I need to have this meta, this, go down the line. Who's the professional player? Watch read their ebook, all that stuff. I ain't taking it that seriously, but I am a competitor. I want to win, but I just learned to have fun with it to where I don't take the losses too seriously. Do I get salty? Sure, but I'm not gonna sit there and, complain about the other person trying really hard. Sometimes, at the end of the day, It's up to you to turn it on or not. Because that's how I feel. When I see someone trying real hard, I'm like, oh, okay, let me turn it on then. See, some people have that where you can turn it on and off a switch. And sometimes it works, sometimes it don't. Because just because I turn it on don't mean I win all the time. I don't all the time. But yeah, I don't believe esports ruin gaming. If anything, it opened more doors for gaming. And to be real, there's so many other avenues that games have. I ain't gonna say every game, but that games have to where you can play it and enjoy yourself in chill mode. For example, there's a lot of single player modes. Well, I don't want to play single player modes. Well, playing against the CPU at the smallest, the easiest difficulty is the only area you're going to be in where you can get it any way you want and how you want to play it. That's just somebody has to say that. If you want it the way you want to play the game, go to single player mode, turn it to the lowest difficulty, and enjoy yourself. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's no looking down. There's no shame to it. But to think you're going to go on online mode and face other people who are looking to win and get a highlight for themselves, because just like you want to get a fun highlight for yourself or TikTok, whatever the case may be, the other person wants to as well. They just want to win. So, and that's another thing, is that this word sweating is a slippery slope. What I mean by that is, I've seen some video footages of certain people, and they're sweating. And then I watch them, like, they're not really sweating. They just want to win, They're not. I don't see anything this person's doing of this opponent being extra on you. He's just doing what it takes to win. So that's why when people tell me, like, you sweating, I'm like, so I'm not sweating if I let you win, right? Because it is so funny. Those people that say you're sweating, the moment, if you turn it off and let them win, they're talking all the trash. I'm the best, I'm the best, I'm the best, I'm the best, you're garbage, you're trash, then you play, oh, you're sweating. So that's why I don't really believe esports has ruined gaming. Like, they see those people that are esports games, how they're meta of winning, and people want to use that at home, and it works. There's nothing wrong with that. There is a side to the competitive scene. And to be honest with y'all, the competitive scene has always been around. It's just gotten bigger. That's another thing too that's different in gaming now than it was back in the day. The pool is a lot bigger. Way more gamers than it used to be when I was a teenager. I'm 33. When I was 13, the pool was different. I could dominate on Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat, for example. Now, I can't dominate. Now, granted, I took a 10-year break from playing fighting games. That's why I'm like mid now when you see me play. Because I got to put the time I put back in is not the time I put in now. I want to, though, so I got to eventually do that. But times are different, too. There's a lot more gamers. A lot more gamers. And they're looking to do the one thing that you're trying to do, too, which is win. And the funny thing is, those people who say sweating and all that stuff, and they're saying don't take the game too seriously, they're the ones, in my opinion, a lot of them, not all of them, they're the ones who take the game seriously the most, in my opinion. Because they're the first ones to rage quit. They're the first ones to yell, to cuss somebody out, and all that other stuff. And it's like, I thought you didn't take the game seriously. Because if you didn't take the game seriously, you wouldn't care to lose. You wouldn't care to all that other stuff. But no, you take it seriously too. You're just not winning. And I think a lot of people need to start saying that. No, you don't care about all the other stuff you're saying, like esports. You're following the esports meta and this and that and yada yada yada. It's like, no, you're just not winning, and so it's hurting your feelings. And now granted, there are some that are not like. I'm not saying everybody's like that. So yeah, let me know in the comments how you feel. I just talked for 10 whole minutes. Goodness gracious. How long is this video? 14 minutes. All right, I'm gonna get right into it. But first off, shout out to Adrid. I want to see his or her, whoever this is, and see their take on this aspect. But yeah, I don't believe so. Esports, to be real, I don't. I've always seen competitive fields when it comes to gaming. I don't know why it's talked about now that it's ruining gaming. I don't understand why it's talked about now, because when I was 13, granted, it wasn't as big as it is now, but it was still out there. I played in a tournament at 16 and won a Marvel's Capcom tournament. So it was stuff out there for it, but I don't know. I just don't agree. I don't agree that it ruined gaming. But let's see what he has to say.
For a second. An arena full of excited fans waiting to watch their favourite video game, but this hyper-competitive, high-octane electronic sport these guys are playing isn't doing too hot right now. It's been dominated by one incredibly powerful strategy, and the game devolves into long and boring matches with no variation.
Yeah, that's the thing for me. I don't even watch. You know, I agree to that. That's the one thing that it is boring to watch. A lot of it. I don't say every tournament. Like I do enjoy, you know, some of them every now and then. But for the most part, when you see the same meta, as much as I don't think it's a problem, it is a problem when it comes to entertainment wise. Because you see the same thing, the opponent's using the same thing as the other team, and the same meta over and over and over again. You see the same character in fighting games. There's 30 people in the roster, but you see Johnny Cage versus Johnny Cage in Mortal Kombat. I understand the boring aspect of it. You know, if that's what it means when it comes to ruining, then I can understand that. Maybe. You know, but the other aspect, I thought it was going to go down that road, what I was talking about, because that's what people have been asking me about when it comes to people wanting to play multiplayer. But I'm sorry, if this is the aspect is going in, then yes, I can see how it can.
Commentators, passionate and desperate to keep the game alive, are trying to find any breadcrumb of excitement that they can, but they know that it's a futile effort. As the tournament goes on, people start to leave the arena, sponsors lose faith in the game, and eventually, the developer's baby and work of passion has been forced to shut down. This scenario is a game developer's absolute worst nightmare, especially in an era where the expectation is that every new multiplayer game release eventually turns into a hyper-competitive esport. But I feel like that expectation has clouded the judgment of not just a wide part of the gaming community, but even the developers of these games themselves. And I can't help but feel like both sides are just missing the point. Just because a game comes out with a multiplayer mode in it doesn't mean it has what it takes to be a competitive game. Otherwise, we'd be seeing $1 million Mario Kart tournaments crop up everywhere.
Good point.
So what sets Mario Kart apart from, say, League of Legends or Street Fighter? And what makes a good esport? Well, to answer that question, I'll go through the reasons people seem to think are true, but really aren't. There's a common notion that rampant dev support is needed for a game to be successful in a tournament setting. That without millions of dollars from the developers and Coca-Cola sponsorships at every event, then your game is just going to die. In reality though, all that developer support can really do is artificially make the game seem like it's alive, when it very likely would be abandoned if there wasn't any monetary incentive to play competitively. Games like Fortnite had to learn this the hard way, because although the Fortnite World Cup had the biggest prize pool in esports history and a massive arena full of rabid children, it still couldn't escape the fact that the game itself doesn't make for a good viewing experience, because all you see is a battle of who gets the luckiest with their weapon drops and which player can build a tower the fastest instead of actually shooting the other guy.
That is a good point.
To disprove this is look at the numerous examples where games have had large and passionate communities with little to no dev support, such as the Smash community and pretty much the entire early FGC. These games were, or still are, alive and kicking with only the passion.
I remember when I first saw the video of the whole esport or the competitive scene of Smash Brothers, I had no idea Smash was that big. And again, like I said, I had a 10-year break from fighting games, so in those 10 years, a lot has happened. But when I saw that video someone told me to react to, I was like, wait, Smash Brothers is that big? And this competitive, they're breaking controllers over Smash Brothers? Back in the day when I was a kid, that was a game you just played with friends over, talk a little trash, have a little fun, drink a Coca-Cola, and move on. But it's a lot different now.
Few players and
I wonder if that's one of the biggest competitive scenes.
Tournaments running. Smash especially shows this fully, considering Nintendo has tried to kill its competitive scene in every way imaginable since its inception. Some people are going to say that fighting game tournaments have had full developer support and big sponsorships for about a decade now, so I can't use them as an example because they're using the same things to grow themselves that I say don't grow esports. And although that is true, the devs wouldn't have done much to grow the FGC in the first place if it hadn't had that backbone of passionate grassroots support from the 90s and 2000s. Dev support simply can't prop up a bad esport, and similarly, adding metric shit tons of content to a game through patches isn't going to do that either. Frequent battle passes, skins, new maps, weapons and characters are a common thing to see in modern games, and they admittedly can be a great way to keep adding to a great base game, refining the experience.
What happened to Splitgate? I always wondered that.
But they are only
Splitgate showed up and disappeared.
If there aren't any other glaring issues outside of the game's content.
That was an esports game?
How many skins and characters multiverses adds, it's not going to fix the server connectivity issues and the lack of modes other than online versus. And you can see the results of that in its dramatic drop in players since release. If you want a modern game for an example, take CSGO, a game that has had periods of years go by with little to no significant additions to content, at least until Valorant came out. and it is still one of the biggest and most beloved esports of all time.
And no
Having
knock
too
to
little
anybody who
content-
plays CS:GO. That was something I never understood how it became so big. Like it's not a bad game. I'm not saying that, but it's hard for me to watch. I just try to watch it, and I just accept it's not my thing. It's not like I said nothing bad about it, but let me know in the comments if you're in the CS:GO, what is it that makes it so famous to this day? Let me know.
Content makes a game feel shallow and unfinished, sure, but adding too much content can make a game feel bloated or even negatively impact the game experience if the new map or weapon favors a degenerate strategy. Smash 4 was a perfectly fine game that received constant updates including new stages and characters, and these characters added a lot to the game. However, the final DLC character, Bayonetta, ended up ruining the game so badly that Nintendo shipped out an emergency last-minute patch to fix her, which didn't end up doing much, so after they abandoned the game,
was she OP
it
or
turned
something?
into such a toxic experience that two 15-year-olds decided to have a standoff in EVO Grand Finals.
Bro, what is going on? What is this?
I don't know. I was stalling for time.
And I know what you're thinking. Ardrid, if there's something degen in a game, they should just nerf it. And I fully agree, but let's focus on that point a little more. Because all of these big company sponsorships and content altering patches pale in comparison to the most important thing that everyone says a good esport must have. The elusive and ever-desired concept of balance. It's the idea that as many options in the game should be viable at the highest levels of play, and through that, the metagame will be healthy and intriguing for the players, and a fascinating experience to watch for the viewers at home. Balancing a game is always tough, and there's a ton of different philosophies you can use to accomplish it. But the one that has propped up over the last few years is the idea of perfect balance, that everything should be as equal as possible for a game to be any fun competitively. But again, if you look at the history, you'll see way too many examples of beloved games that have had varying levels of balance. Smash Bros. Melee, Tekken Tag Tournament 1, Marvel vs. Capcom 2, Street Fighter 3 Third Strike. All of these games are considered to be some of the greatest competitive games in their genre, yet have completely unbalanced rosters where only a small fraction of the characters available to you
Right.
are
I
viable
don't.
in each
What
tournament.
game was ever perfect competitively wise? What game has ever been perfectly balanced?
Okay, at this point, some of you might be thinking something like, this guy is such a dumbass. He's making it seem like none of these things matter with anecdotal examples of games that came out 20 years ago that didn't have any of those things. These games didn't have the same standards or lofty expectations that we have now, nor do they have the same level of options that we do now. Players at the time probably just stuck with their game despite being unbalanced or bloated or whatever, right? Wrong. Wait. No! Allow me to disprove that statement with another anecdotal example. The player-based transition from Tekken Tag Tournament 1 to Tekken 4, or the attempted transition I should say. Let's set the scene. Tekken Tag 1 was considered to be the absolute gold standard of the Tekken series.
I love
Pro
that
players
game.
loved it, and in
Yes.
just a little over a year they would be able to play the game's eagerly anticipated sequel, Tekken 4. They waited until the game's release month in the arcades of July 2001. And when they
Man,
got their
bro,
hands on it,
those were the days.
hated
Goodness
it.
gracious, that was
it
so
was
much
slow
fun back
and
then.
weird, and the stages had walls and stuff now. Although in hindsight, they were really cool. And to make matters
I think
worse,
Tekken 4 had
they
some of the best
equally
maps
as
in Tekken
unbalanced
history.
roster as Tag 1 with new character Steve and
Yep.
especially returning fighter Jin being incredibly oppressive. Tekken 4 matches quickly devolved into Jin versus Jin matches, and the game was as divisive as it could have possibly been. Based on this guy's assumption earlier, you'd think that these players would stick with Tekken 4 as this was 2001 and there weren't as many options or as high expectations as we have now for games. Well, actually, the exact opposite happened. After a while of trying to make Tekken 4 work, many Tekken players simply either went back to the horribly unbalanced Tekken Tag 1 or transitioned to other fighting games. Many decided to switch to Namco's other 3D fighter series that had just released a new entry, Soul Calibur 2. A game where the
What
entire
happened with
roster
Soul
seemed to
Calibur,
be
by the
same
way?
but cheap.
They just
So why
disappeared.
did they go back? Aren't Tekken Tag 1
And
Soul
Virtua
Calibur
Fighter
2 just as bad as Tekken 4 when it comes to cheap characters and strategies? What was the difference between these games that made people hate Tekken 4 so much yet adore Tag 1 and Soul Calibur 2? Well, to answer that question, I think it's finally time to get into the actual things that I think create a great and successful esport. 1. The game needs to be easy to understand and watch. It doesn't necessarily have to be fast paced, but what it does have to be is something that even someone who has never even seen the game before can look at and understand it just from a glance. The game's objectives, important elements such as health and damage, and even strategies need to be as easy to understand as possible. As an easy to understand game is going to have a much simpler time bringing in new players than a visual clusterfuck like Fortnite's pro scene. Overwatch has consistently run into this problem with its esports circuit too, where there are just so many particle effects and stuff happening on screen with no downtime whatsoever that it's overwhelming for people
Yeah, that's
who don't
true.
understand the game inside and out.
I mean, I understand it because I play it, but I could understand what he's talking about.
Community and tournament organisers. I'm not talking about some random bog standard event organiser. I'm talking about someone from the community of their game that's passionate and hardworking. Usually someone who was a die-hard player themselves who transitioned into TOing. Esports, for the most part, is not a very profitable industry. So to put on the greatest events on a frequent basis, you need people who are willing to lose money on running tournaments simply for the love of the game. It's what built the early days of Counter-Strike, the FGC, and pretty much every esport that stood the test of time today. If your game's competitive scene can't at some point sustain itself on passion alone, then it has little hope of succeeding in a wider context.
Good point, yeah.
And 3, this one is the most important one. The game's mechanics need to be as perfectly balanced as possible. Some of you are going to say that I'm contradicting myself here, as I literally just said that balance wasn't important, but let's make a key distinction here. All of the examples I showed of unbalanced games gaining esports success were unbalanced in their rosters, their weapons, their specific elements in which you interact with the game mechanics. The reason that people preferred Tekken Tag 1 to Tekken 4, despite both games having horribly unbalanced rosters, was because Tekken Tag 1's core game mechanics were simply much more balanced than Tekken 4's. Even if Steve and Jin were nerfed into oblivion in Tekken 4, the game would have died anyway because of its broken wall system and stupidly
Yeah, I remember that too. That map they showed before that one was my favorite.
Was never added into Smash 4 because the game's over-reliance on shielding as an approach option and the strength of grabs would have eventually killed it anyway. And no matter how many balance patches and new heroes they added to Overwatch 1, it didn't stop the massive amount of stuns and the 2-tank meta from scaring people away. And after those things were fixed in Overwatch 2, you can easily see just how much larger and passionate the community has gotten over that game. Unless it's an extreme case, when a character or weapon is overpowered, there are always going to be players who will avoid them by using different characters or weapons. Low tier heroes are a thing in every game, but when the core gameplay mechanics
I gotta relearn how to play Tekken again. I haven't played in such a long time. I want to use Steve too.
Avoiding the game's mechanics is basically the same thing as not playing the game at all. So from that perspective, it's obvious just how important a balanced core gameplay loop is. In that sense, the metrics for what make a good esport are very similar to what makes a good game in general. Nobody wants to play a platform where running and jumping are slow after all. But the problem is, in the pursuit of this esports dream and eternal relevancy, a lot of developers seem to lose sight of that fact. Think about the biggest live service games in the world right now. League of Legends, Valorant, Apex Legends. All of these games seem to be in good states now, but where will they be in 20 years? Will they even be around in 20 years?
I can see League of Legends and Valorant. I don't know about Apex.
But I guarantee you the obsession.
I don't play Apex a lot, but people are saying it's dying now.
Updates and frequent balance patches will mean that the Apex of today will look nothing like the Apex of 2042. And what if these changes actually made the game worse rather than better?
I can see Valorant stick around.
Of the game? This isn't Minecraft version swapping. These games require you to be online in order to play them. So it's ride or die with the current version until the devs fix it. And if the game servers get shut down, then tough luck. You are never playing this game again. When talking about game preservation, everyone mentions the old classics that require aging hardware to run. But what about the hundreds of live service games that require massive servers to run and have had so many content patches that the version of the game you played as a kid may not even be available anymore? I don't think that esports itself has ruined gaming. Far from it. I love esports myself, but the mentality and glorification of esports that it puts the community and devs into definitely has. It isn't because ranked has caused tryhards to pop up everywhere and I can't 360 no-scope noobs anymore like back in the
that's what I was talking about earlier in the video.
But because game devs all over the world look at the prestige and deep competitive history of games like League of Legends and Street Fighter, and they lust for it so hard that they fail to see the mountain that they had to climb to reach that peak. And the true reasons why people play those games is that they are amazing, mechanically well-balanced experiences that allow for deep and engrossing gameplay. It's not $1 million prize pools and frequent content updates. And the furious chase of this ideal is simply not smart for most games that aren't really made for esports. A competitive scene has to be gradually built by die-hard fans that have true passion for the game. And just like how you can lead a horse to water and you can't make it drink, you simply can't force a game to be an esport. And as long as the gaming community keeps trying to do that, more and more games will fail to reach their true potential.
All right. But yeah, so what he was talking about was a little different. He talked about a little bit I touched on earlier, but I didn't know that was going down this road. But I definitely see what he's saying. I personally don't watch a lot of esports. I do a little bit. The only reason I know of League of Legends is because I watch it a little bit, because I don't play because I'm a console player, but it's interesting to watch. But honestly, when I'm in my chill mood, that's why I turn on League of Legends, because for me, League of Legends just seems like a very chill game to play. Even though I know those who play it are like, no, it's not. But no, the way he's saying, I see his point. And one of the reasons, like I said, I don't watch a lot of esports games is because it can get boring. You know, I don't want to see the same person, same character. Like, let's say the top 10, for example. Everybody, for the most part, using the same character. Now, the meta and all that stuff, I know it's all meta and all that other stuff, but in my eyes, I'm like, if you that dude, you should be able to use any character to dominate, or at least another, not any character, but you should be able to use a different one. I know Johnny Cage is overpowered or whatever, but you can't use Scorpion, Noob Saibot. I'm just naming different. I'm not saying that's meta. I'm just naming characters. And so that's what made me draw it away go away because it was just boring. I don't want to see, when I watch Overwatch, Winston versus Winston. And it's like, y'all not that good to try somebody else. Again, I'm not here to tell competitors how to play the game, but as a viewer, like when he was talking about, that can drive you away. Heck, I was at Evo, and there were some people. This was before the top 5 or whatever. I can't remember what. I forgot which era, what part it was on, but it was a certain time where there was Johnny Cage versus Johnny Cage. There was the same characters fighting each other, and you hear people in the seat like, "Boo! I don't want to see this. This is boring. All them characters in MK1, y'all can't use somebody else." So viewer wise, I can understand how that could be boring, but I was going to it as a fact of what I was talking to somebody in the comments about, where they're complaining about multiplayer, and they believe that a lot of people are tryhards because they're trying to do what esports players are doing, and trying to they're acting like, the guy told me before in the comments, they're acting like they're trying to compete to be on the esports team. It just doesn't make it fun. That sweat. Well, if I'm trying to win, I would look for the advice of competitive players. Heck, I watch Sonic Fox. I watch whenever I do have time. Like, I want to learn Tekken 8 again, so now I'm starting to watch professional Steve players to see how they play. And how they move, and what's the meta of move, like how movement, whatever. I would want to look at, if I'm trying to be at the top of the game, I would want to look at the top players too. I don't see anything wrong with that. I don't believe those kind of players was messing it up. So that was my point of esports. That's what I thought it was going at, was how people who are sitting at home are trying to copy off the same thing that these professional players are doing. I see no problem with that. If you don't like it, then play against the CPU. But yeah, so anyway, that I was talking about in a different aspect, but I do see this side as well. But I'll put his original video in the comment in the description, and let me know your take on it. I deal with sweats that y'all call. I deal with them too. But honestly, I just sit there and be like, okay, I got to up my game. I don't take it to heart. And that's why that's the thing I deal with, that I have issue with, is that the ones who say I don't take it too seriously and this person's taking it seriously, I truly believe they are taking it seriously. The ones who have an attitude about it. Because if you didn't take it seriously, you wouldn't care. You'd be like, dang, this dude is sweating. All right, whatever. You see, like me, have different aspects when I play. Sometimes I'm like, it is what it is. You got to learn. In some aspects, I'm like, oh my goodness, and I get all salty. I really care when I get all salty and stuff. I don't when you see me just, okay, whatever. This person really wants to win more than I do. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, when I went on the well, I haven't played in a minute, but when I go to the basketball court, and you see that guy who's making every shot, doing all the moves, whatever he can to win, you can't hate on him. You can't say, oh, he's sweating. No, he wants to win. And that's the thing let me know in the comments, what do you feel what I'm saying? Of the fact that if you in multiplayer, one side versus the other, what is the opponent supposed to do to not be considered a sweat? Let you win? You know, when you play Street Fighter and the person is whooping your tail and you're saying they're sweating, what are they supposed to do? Let you win? And that's the one thing I'm just gonna keep it real. That's the one thing I always had an issue with. They're trying to act like they're trying to be on esports. They're watching all these esports players. They're trying to be the next thing for YouTube. And even if they was, so what? Good for them. They see they have a bright future. Who knows? You know, so that's why I think, if anything, I believe the ones who are complaining are taking it more seriously than the ones who are just really good at the game. Because again, I'll say it one more time. If you didn't care, it wouldn't bother you. And, you know, if you want a game to just chill and have fun, there's a lot of single player games. Or, yeah, a lot of single player games. Turn the difficulty down and have a good time. There's no shade to that. There's nothing wrong with that, but that's just me. Let me know what y'all think in the comments below, and I'll see you later. Take care. Oh, wait, let me make sure I like the video. There we go. Take care.